Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr. This is the On the Stacks podcast.
Oh yeah, whoa, look, they can never keep me down, I'm going, and if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win. I'm going up.
Today's guest is Bo Nickal, the three-time NCAA wrestling champion from Penn State University and current rising star of the UFC. In this exclusive interview, Bo speaks openly about his upbringing, the role faith plays in his life, what it was like to have an illustrious collegiate wrestling career, how he felt after winning his first UFC pay-per-view fight, and his prediction for his upcoming July 8th matchup. This episode would not be possible without the support of our sponsors, so please check them out in the show notes. And now, here's Bo Nickal on the Stacks.
I feel like I have unfinished business. I feel like I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to in wrestling. I'm moving into this new arena. I don't feel like, I'm done. I feel like there's so much ahead of me. I want to be the one that decides whether or not I'm successful or not. I'm not going to leave it up to Dana White. I'm not going to leave it up to the UFC. I'm not going to leave it up to my coaches. I'm not going to leave it up to my training partners. I'm not going to leave it up to anybody but me. When I look at what I'm doing now and why I'm doing it, I think first and foremost that God has just instilled such a strong enthusiasm in my heart for these things. I just genuinely love what I do every single day. I know I'm going to win and I'm going to reach my goals because I'm just going to go until I do it. I believe I can do it in a certain timeline, right? And at the end of the day, if that's my timeline and what I think is good for me is different than what God has set out in front of me, then we're going to adjust that path. But at the end of the day, I'm not ever going to quit. I'm not ever going to give up. Nobody will ever break me. It's not happening. My goals are to be UFC champion, to be the number one pound for pound fighter in the world.
You have a fight coming up July 8th.
Yep.
What's your fight prediction? This episode is brought to you by Burn, the fitness company behind the Today Show approved Burn board. If I'm being honest, working out can be a real chore, especially as a new dad in desperate need of sleep and cardio. Burn is founded by NEPA native Jimmy T. Martin, and his Burn board offers a low-impact core and cardio experience unlike anything I've done before. They have hundreds of on-demand workouts that are great for beginners, seasoned athletes, and out-of-shape podcast hosts who love supporting small businesses. My wife and I use it pretty frequently throughout the week, and it's honestly a great way to burn a ton of calories without burning a ton of cash. Not to mention, it's a great tool for skiers, runners, wrestlers, and hockey players. Jimmy is offering all On The Stacks listeners 15% off when they use the code STACKS15. Visit theburn.com today to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15 at checkout. Again, that's theburn, THEBRRN.com to get 15% off your purchase with code STACKS15. It's time to get on board today with Burn. This episode is brought to you by Cavanaugh's Grille, one of my favorite places to eat and drink in NEPA. They've got one of the best outdoor patios with 13 TVs and over 20 beers on tap. You can also dine inside at this cozy Irish-style pub where your beer never goes empty. Did I mention how delicious their food is? Their in-house smoked brisket, barbecue ribs, and wings are to die for. So grab your friends and have a drink on me at Cavanaugh's. Mention code STACKS for one free draft beer with purchase of any entree when you dine in. Located at 163 North Main Street in Mountaintop, Cavanaugh's is open at 4 p.m. during the week and 12 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday during football season. Dine in today at Mountaintop's only Irish-style pub.
Hey Northeast PA, Paul Perfect Storm here. Do you want your kitchen or bathroom to go from this to this? Well, Perfect Storm can do it.
Need a kitchen or bath remodel and don't know who the experts are? Perfect Storm Renovations. Expert designers and installers who can help you achieve the kitchen or bathroom of your dreams. Schedule your free in-home design today. Perfect Storm Renovations. High-end quality anyone can afford.
What's up, podcast? It's your host here, Bill Corcoran Jr. in the Blue Door Studio, protected by our friends at Ritchie Security Solutions. Bo Nickal, welcome to the On the Stacks podcast.
Hey, appreciate you having me.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you making the trip in.
Of course.
And excited to get to know Bo a little bit, right? And we did a little shopping at our boys' store before we started, and we'll give him a little shout out soon. But got some fresh kicks.
Got some fresh kicks. Got to keep the kicks fresh.
Yeah, exactly. So, I feel like I've feel like I've known you like almost my whole life, not because of what you do also, but also because, you know, we're both Penn State alum, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I know you can probably relate. It's like as soon as you meet like another Penn Stater, it's just like there's just that instant connection.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. Whether I see somebody like in the airport or wherever it is, you know, somebody comes up to me and they're like, I went to Penn State. I'm like, what's up, dog? Like, how we doing?
It's like instant friends.
Right.
I find the same thing like literally everywhere.
That's
Like,
one thing I love about Penn State is that, like, you know, most people on the outside look into it and they're like, it's like a cult or whatever. And I'm like, well, I guess that's a negative way to look at it, but it's really from the inside, it's like a family, you know? And I think that just wanting to support each other, and especially coming out of college, you notice it even more of Penn Staters wanting to like get behind other Penn Staters and, you know, help them succeed in general, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, I've only ever attended one university, so I don't know if it's like that, but in other places, but I would assume that this is pretty unique.
I think it is unique. I really do. I mean, because as you said, like some people may like bust your ass about it, because people bust my ass about it all the time. Like my friends are like, dude, you're so obsessed with Penn State. I'm like, well, you just don't get it.
Yeah, you don't.
Like you don't understand. Like there's just such a greater connection, like a deeper connection that I don't think is found anywhere else.
For sure. Yeah, like, you know, family at the end of the day. I really feel that. Like, and if anybody from Penn State was like, hey man, we do, like, I want to help them that much more for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's it. It's just like if somebody, I've always done that. If somebody from, you know, even if I didn't know you, and if you reach out to me or like, yo, hey, I went to Penn State, like, hey, could you help me with X, Y, Z? I'm like, I'm responding to that person like 9 out of 10 times. Because I've also been that guy where I'm like, hey, I went to Penn State, you know, would love to see if you can help me out. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah.
Oh yeah. I've noticed it big time since I started fighting, and I still live in State College, right? So, you know, I'm on campus pretty much every day, and there's so many people that come up to me and they're like, you know, just excited about, you know, ask me when my next fight is, or tell me good job on my last one, or whatever it is. Like the support, you know, obviously there's a lot of support in wrestling, right? Like big wrestling fan base and everybody loves it. But even since fighting, there's so many more people that are into that I'll just be walking through, and there's really never a day that goes by where I'm not walking on campus somewhere and somebody says something to me, which is just cool, you know, just have that community support. Like that means a lot to me.
Yeah, it truly is like a family. I mean, it really is. Like even if I like, even when I go back and visit, it's like I feel that immediately.
Yeah,
it's like you feel like you're going home.
Yeah, well,
you know,
I'm still living there.
It is home for you. Nowadays. But
that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, I never really expected that. It wasn't something that I thought going in, but I mean, I've lived there 9 years now, and you know, I love it.
Yeah. So all right, now we got to move on to the most important topic, which is the fact that you beat Jake Paul and his buddies in dodgeball, right?
Right. Yeah. Big dub.
Yeah. You hit the game-winning out, right? So let's talk about that for a minute. What's your connection with Jake Paul, and how'd you guys meet?
Yeah. So I just a month ago or so signed an endorsement deal with company Betr. So Jake Paul's the president and one of the founders of the company. So really, there's two sides to it. There's sports betting, micro betting. They're the first in that industry to do, I guess, I don't even know. It's so new, right? Like I don't even necessarily have the proper language to describe it, but it's almost instantaneous bets, right? Like you see it on DraftKings or FanDuel now, but Better's really kind of taking that to a new level. And then, so there's that side of the business. And then what I'm really focusing on is the media side of the business. So there's a few different verticals. There's, you know, within sports betting, you have basketball, football, soccer, whatever sports, but I'm heading up the media side of the combat sports vertical. So Betr Combat, those social channels are if you're following them, you're gonna see a lot of me on there, basically.
Yeah, I do. I've been following them, and yeah.
So
it's great content.
Yeah, so it was awesome. I think it made a lot of sense with where Betr is, their position in the industry, and, you know, kind of being an up and coming company, in addition to myself being an up and comer, you know, prospect in MMA and having a whole lot of upside. And, you know, with Jake being the president, this deal was originally brought to me last summer, brought to my management team. And so we took a little while working on it and making sure that all the terms were appropriate for both sides and made sense for both sides. And then it was maybe a month before my last fight that I inked the deal. And yeah, then we're just doing a lot of cool stuff. So, the first kind of set of content that I did with them was kind of a fight week lead up for my first UFC fight, which is on their YouTube channel. And then I'm going to be doing a ton of content with them moving forward. So did a dodgeball tournament.
You did, yeah.
That was the first time I met Jake. I'd FaceTimed him prior to that, but got to play dodgeball with him and hang out with him and all the guys from the company. And then moving forward, we're going to do shows. So it'll be kind of podcast style. I'm already planning 2 shows. So the first one is going to be called Bo Gets Better, where I'm going to travel and hopefully find like people that, whether they're athletes or entrepreneurs or people that have just kind of like we were talking about earlier, high performers who maybe have some other passion or niche or interest that they like. Like I'll give you examples. So like I really want to get Micah Parsons on the show, who's a good friend of mine, but he loves bowling. Like Micah can bowl like no other. So
he's a big bowler.
Yeah. So
I never would have guessed.
Yeah. So I seen him. He's like scoring like 250, 260, 270, like crazy bowler, and he loves it. So like everybody wants to talk about Micah about football, but like I want to go bowling with Micah. And, like,
and talk about bowling.
Yeah, talk about bowling, and then just kind of his mindset, maybe like how it translates from football to bowling, and like he obviously is very good at both. So it's like what correlations are there, and like kind of what things can translate to success in any industry. And so I'm sure there's a lot of people like that are super high performers in one thing, that are passionate maybe about something else. Like somebody might be super passionate about darts or pool or photography or anything like that. And I kind of want to dive into what's helped that person become successful, and like what concepts they use in the other areas of their life, and like how does that look in an applicable sense to everyone. So that's like the first one, and then the other one is going to be a little more simple. It's just going to be like MMA talk and general stuff. So
maybe some vlog style stuff. You're already doing that now.
I'm gonna keep the vlog style stuff separate. I'm still gonna be putting that stuff out. It's crazy, man. There's a lot of content to be made, but yeah. You got a team helping with that? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have a videographer, photographer. He runs my socials as well. Guy, his name's Ronan. So
shout out to Ronan. I think I've seen a little bit of on your social media.
Yeah, Ronan Bell. So he's really taken my social to the next level. I first met him maybe last summer, and we instantly had a good connection, good vibe. I felt like we were on the same page in a lot of areas, and so he's running my social, and we collaborate on a lot of things, obviously, but it takes a lot of pressure off me to have him to be able to manage all of that. And then obviously, as far as back to the Betr thing, he manages pretty much all of that content, shoots it all, and he's able to be in communication with them so that I'm not too overwhelmed. But yeah, man, having a good team, setting up the team when I did, I'm very grateful for it, because now being in the UFC, it's kind of like the avalanche has already started, and I don't want to be scrambling to set things up. So fortunately for me, I've had a good team for a while now, and we're all getting better at what we do, and what we have in place has really, I think, set me up to be more and more successful in all the different ventures.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think, important, especially like you said now, like, because like you need to be focusing on the next opponent.
Yeah,
all the content's great and everything, and I love seeing it too, man. Like I love seeing the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's great. Your team's doing an awesome job, man. So
right. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Keep bringing the fire.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, they're the best. So like I feel really grateful. One like the predominant emotions I feel like most days is just a lot of gratitude, because I have so many people around me. Like we were talking about the Penn State community. It's like that on top of my wrestling community, my MMA community, all the other people that are pouring into me. And, like you said, at the end of the day, I got to go win. And I know all these people just want to support me and help me and allow me to focus on that. And that's the thing I'm most passionate about, is fighting and getting better as a fighter. But there's a whole lot of other opportunities and a whole lot of other things in life that I want to be able to take advantage of, that you need to lean on people for. And that's something that I'm learning a lot about, just kind of coming into this new arena. And just very grateful I have a great team.
Yeah, because at this point I imagine you're probably being pulled in 1,000,001 directions.
It's crazy, man.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're here today. I know you're in the middle of traveling. You got a couple things going on the next few days. Like, it's you got to be able to rely on those people to help you pull all this stuff together, man.
Definitely, man. I think that there would be no way for me to truly take advantage of my position and my opportunity into into its fullest capacity without relying on these people, and I think the other thing that's important is that these people have been with me for a while, right? Like, it's not like new people jumping in trying to ride the wave, right? Like, I think,
trying to make a quick buck.
Yeah. I think it's important to differentiate people that are there with you for the long haul, that are ride or die, versus people that are kind of trying to jump in and just be maybe just catch a little bit of that shine in a way.
Trying to ride the wave with you.
Yeah. You know, and I don't really, when I look at my team, all these guys have been with me for a long time, right? Like, even my management team, I signed with them in 2019 before I ever had trained MMA, before I ever, had a fight. And so to kind of be in a position where I feel that I can trust all these people in a very genuine sense, I feel very good about it. And, I'm not looking really I feel like what I have in place is very solid, and I'm not really looking to add to that, like, there's a lot of people that are going to try to pull you in different directions, but with what I have right now, I'm sticking to my guns, and I trust all those people.
Good for you, man. Stay true to your roots.
No doubt.
That's so important.
Yeah. I think that when I look at a lot of fighters or people that maybe just kind of are skyrocketed to some type of fame, not that I'm like that famous at this point, right? But, I will get there. You see so many people try to leech and take advantage of them, and if you don't have a solid foundation underneath you, when you get to that point, you're just so vulnerable. And so for me, coming from wrestling and just the kind of, I don't know what the right, like, I guess just like working class almost mentality of what it took to get to accomplish what I accomplished in wrestling, and knowing that it took a long time, right? It wasn't like, all right, boom, all of a sudden I was there. It was like I was working from 5-6 years old very diligently to get to where I was at, and the people that were around me, that were supporting me, that stayed with me, are the same people that I'm with now. And so just trying to continue to like tap into that and honor that, and really continue to remind myself like where I came from. That's really, I think, going to be one of my biggest assets coming into this new arena, that I have a million more eyes on me, and there's a million more opportunities, because with that, again, comes the people that want to friggin' leech you and take all of that from you. And again, I feel good about who I have. I'm gonna stick with them. It's the squad.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. So all right, so I know everybody was probably expecting me right off the bat, like, to jump into like the MMA stuff and start talking about UFC and stuff like that, and
right.
and we will, and I want to, but I would love to take a few minutes to just really learn about Bo.
Yeah.
And like really talk about Bo. I know family is super important to you. I know you're very close with your family, your parents, your mother. Like, talk to me for a few minutes about growing up. Like, take me back to just growing up with the family.
Yeah, when I think back to my childhood and the way that I grew up, kind of how I was raised, what I was taught was important. I spent so much time. I spent, first off, a ton of time with my dad, because he was my wrestling coach growing up, and I have 3 sisters as well, and my mom, and pretty much like a regular weekend for us was
sports,
loading up in the van and going to football, going to wrestling, going to basketball, soccer, something like that, right? Like, and that was just kind of what we bonded over and what we all enjoyed. My parents were both college athletes, and so they, kind of had that competitive nature and instilled it in us at a very young age. And yeah, I look back at my my childhood, and it really, that was kind of how my family bonded and became close. And of course, we did other things with each other. We went camping or watched movies or spent time with each other in other ways. But that really, a lot of that really brought us together, especially like I was saying with my dad, because he was in my corner. When I look back when I was a kid, I don't know how he did this, because he was a school teacher and a wrestling coach. So, he had a pretty full schedule on that end. But there was maybe one match as a kid that he missed, like, of my whole, like,
forever
from the time I was 5 to 18. Like, I don't know how he did it. It was like,
isn't that funny how like you like as you know now as like adults, right? Like we're like real adults now, right? Like you look back because I'm like I'm a new dad myself. I have a son who's 18 months old.
Wow.
Right. So like I'm looking back now, just kind of reflecting on my childhood sometimes.
Yeah.
And like I think about it, and I look at same thing. Like like when I was in high school, I did track, cross country, and I was telling you before I did karate. I'm also a martial artist. But like same thing. Like you look back and you wonder, how the hell did your parents do it all? Right? Like between work and everything. I have a sibling, I have stepbrothers and stepsisters. Like how the hell did our parents do it? It's crazy to think about now as a parent, for me at least.
Right. Yeah. It's so crazy. I think about just like how much time I spend doing certain things, and I don't even have kids yet. And I'm like, makes me more grateful that I had somebody like that really believed in me and wanted to pour into me and just see me succeed. And I think another reason that I look back on my childhood so fondly and that I really feel that I learned so many good lessons and appreciate what I was able to do even more is because I don't feel like my dad ever wanted it more than me. I see nowadays a lot of dads or parents like want their kids to
forcing it.
Yeah, they want them to be like the next whatever, the next Michael Jordan or the next Cale Sanderson or whatever it is. And my dad always just wanted me to win for me. And, of course he pushed me and he knew what I needed to do to accomplish that, which was a lot of sacrifice and a lot of difficult things. But it always came down to my choice at the end of the day. I truly feel that. It was never like, hey, we're going to this tournament. It was like, hey, do you want to wrestle at this tournament? And 99% of the time, the answer for me was yes. But the very few times that I said no, then we didn't go, And
you've said no to wrestling?
Yeah.
Come on. I don't believe this.
I think there were very few times that I did, but there were certain times where I was just like, Dad, like, I want to do something. I want to play football. I played football and baseball and ran track growing up. And there was times where I was like, this is getting a little much. And he was very receptive to that. And I think, again, very few times because I was wrestling hundreds of matches a year as like
a lot. 7
or 8 year old kid. Like just, I don't even know. I would love to like try to count all of the matches that I've had even before I got to college. But yeah, the times I think that I did say no, and then he was very supportive and loving. And, I look back and just look at it with a lot of gratitude, which from my perspective, I don't think very many athletes that achieved what I achieved or that competed at the level that I competed at can look back and say that, because for the most part, when I look at wrestlers, a lot of them like had super demanding parents who were like forceful and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, like I didn't really feel that way, but I think I was just an outlier where I was very unique in my mindset and motivation and desire to like achieve things far into the future when, I was a young kid. And I don't think most kids have that type of mindset. They just kind of, if they did achieve it, they maybe fell into it and don't really have that love and passion for it the way that I did. But yeah.
What was your mindset like as a kid?
As a kid, it's kind of funny. I think about what my goals were when I was really young, right? Like when I really pretty much first started the sport, and they stayed pretty much true all the way through. Like I wanted to be a state champion in high school. That was like kind of the first thing that I thought of. I wanted to be a national champion in college. I want to be Olympic gold medalist. I want to be world champion. And these were goals for me that I had at literally 7, 8 years old, very, very young. Most kids, I think that age, didn't even know what they were like, only concerned with what they were going to eat for lunch or something, or who they were going to play with at recess. Like I was thinking about like winning when I'm 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, like achieving these things. And I think the big thing too is that what I sacrificed and my discipline and work ethic really reflected that. I was the kid that was like always doing extra, right? Like as soon as I got big enough to practice with the high school team, I would practice with my dad's high school team, and then I would do the club practice after. There would be days for me where I would work out. Once I got a little older, like into high school and stuff, where I would do a workout in the morning, and then I would do a wrestling practice at 2, and then I would take a little break and then come back for club practice at like 6 or 7. And there was like 3 workouts a day.
3 a days.
Yeah, dude. Like that's what I was doing. I was grinding. High school, I put a lot of time in, but even before that, there was a lot of times where I would remember my dad running a high school practice, running a club practice, me doing both of those. And then also, me and him staying after doing extra stuff, just one-on-one, me and him. And we're the only two in the wrestling room. Everybody else is gone, probably eating dinner and stuff. And there was a lot of sacrifice being made. And I always had a strong correlation between the discipline, the sacrifice, and succeeding and winning. Most people, I don't think, are able to build that. Maybe they don't see the direct relationship between your work and your results. I think, as you get older, it's maybe easier to see because you have more experience. But some people also really never see that.
They don't see the vision.
They don't see it. And I was able to see it very young. And, I think a good example, one of my best friends, love this dude to death. In my wedding, really my first friend, the only friend that I've had since I was 5 years old, Bryce Meredith. I was telling you about him. He's fighting next Friday in Bellator. And he was me and him and his parents and my parents, every tournament together. We lived in Wyoming at the time, and we would train together and stuff. And he was one weight smaller than me, but we'd go to every tournament together. And for some reason, every tournament, it would be I would get first and he would get second. And not wrestling each other, but just the results in the tournament. Or I would get third and he would get fifth. I would always just do a little better than him. And at first it was kind of weird to me, because when I looked at Bryce, I was Bryce is a super athlete. He was the kid that was jacked, tan, ripped, six pack at 10 years old. And I was a skinny.
You were the little skinny kid, right?
I was a string bean.
Yeah.
I look kind of imagine what I did now, but just young. Yeah. So I was just a string bean. I was athletic and stuff, but Bryce looked just a little.
He was already jacked.
He was a little monster.
Yeah.
But the difference was, and I noticed this right away, was that the night before the tournament, I would go to bed 8 p.m. I'd be in bed, I would knock out, and I would be doing my thing. And Bryce would stay up, be running around doing his thing. And the next day at the tournament, I would sit by my dad and I would just watch the matches, and I would just be ready to compete. And Bryce would run around and play tag with our other buddies and different stuff like that. And I've talked to him about this and stuff, so I feel comfortable saying it. But I right away noticed that. I was wow, if I just keep doing what I'm doing, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna take first. I'm gonna reach these things. And Bryce just had a different personality. He was more he has to be more relaxed, more loose, more having a good time.
Social.
Yeah, so very social. And I was not as social. And that just was just kind of the way it went. And I immediately saw those things. And for me, it was worth it to miss out on a lot of that stuff. And I don't think it was for him. And I still think for him, we still feel the same way. As adults now, we can look back on it and it's we kind of still feel that way. I'll give you another example. Once we got into college, I'm not drinking until I'm done with school my senior year. I'm not going to take a sip of alcohol. I'm not going to step foot in a bar. Not going to do it. And Bryce is all right, I'll have a beer, be casual, drink here and there. He wasn't a crazy partier or anything, but he was more social and accepting of that. And that was just our personalities kind of translating into adult decisions, right? And it was the same thing when we were kids, right? It wasn't worth it for him. He wasn't happy as a person and excited to be living life every day if he felt he was missing out on those things. Those things were more important to him, and for me they weren't. And it doesn't really mean one's better or one's worse. It's just your own decisions. And I think part of growing up is understanding those things and just becoming comfortable with them and being you know what, this is what I'm about. And what I'm about is this, and this. And I'm going to stay true to that. I don't care what pulls me in what direction. This is who I am. And I think that both of us are very comfortable in that. And so now it's I'm the same way. I'm not drinking, I'm not partying, I'm not going out, I'm not doing any of that. And I'm focused on these things. And for him, again, he's not a crazy dude, but he's I'm going to go do these fun things and I'm not going to miss out on that. And it's just your own personal decisions and choices. And, I think, again, it's not one's better than the other. It's just being true to who you really are. I think that's what's important.
Yeah, and I think what I think is so cool and interesting about that is the fact that like you guys are still really good friends.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, because of that, because of the differentiation between like, how much more, into it you were than he was, you guys both at some point could have really went separate paths.
Definitely.
Because of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think it's so cool to see that you guys are still, even though you have a little bit different, viewpoints on those things, that you guys were actually able to like remain friends through that. Like, cause man, I could have went sour.
For sure. Yeah. It's crazy to me, that we were able to do that. And that's something that I can't even place like a value on that. It's like so valuable to me that we were able to do that and that we still have such a close relationship. And so, yeah, man, it is really interesting to think about that and how it worked out. And I think it's again a relationship. Like I'll be friends with him to the day I die, right? Like we became friends at like 6 years old. We're now 27, 28, still close. And it's cool too because we're still pursuing like similar things, right? Like we both wrestled in college, and now he's fighting MMA, I'm fighting MMA, and it's like we're kind of on this same path. And definitely different mindsets, more similarities than differences, still some differences, but yeah, to be able to remain close with him, like those are the things that really are important to me in life. Like winning and being successful, making money, all that stuff is like, yeah, that's cool. But like this stuff, that's like my favorite thing about, my life at this point.
Yeah. Let's talk about your mom a little bit. Tell me about mom.
Yeah.
Mom was a boxer. Mom was a fighter,
Yeah,
right? Tell me about mom.
Mom's a beast. Yeah. My mom, she's great. So growing up, like I said, my dad was my coach. I was always spending a lot of time with my dad. I feel like my relationship with my mom was always like a fun, competitive one where like we would play basketball together, or we'd go like try to catch lizards, or like we'd, when I got a little older, we'd like wrestle around, or we'd box, or like just stuff like that. Like it was always a very fun thing with my mom. My dad, I had fun with him, but it was also like, all right, certain times, like let's get to business. And, but my mom, she's just such like a unique person. And, now when I look at, myself, I see a lot of my fire, my intensity, my competitiveness, like it definitely came from her. And her being such a high level athlete, like she grew up doing all different sports. She played basketball in college, and then when she got done with college, she met my dad. And my mom's like somebody that you really, I don't want to say wild card, but like she's gonna do like the fun, exciting things that like people, like she doesn't care what people think. And so like she played actually her first sport that she did outside of like what she had done growing up was she played in the women's professional football league. And she was on a team in Colorado, and she was just like, I just want to play, like let's do it. And so
that's so cool.
I just loved it, started playing football. And then with my dad being so into wrestling, she started like learning about wrestling, and then that's kind of how she transitioned and got into boxing. We lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time, and there was a big culture of like fighting and MMA and stuff. And so she started, the way she got into boxing actually was, there was in our town that we lived in, a charity event where it was firefighters versus police officers boxing match, and there was a female police officer, but there was no female firefighter. And so they asked her if she would like step in and do it, and she was like, of course. Like again, my mom was like,
yeah, wild card,
she's not going to say no,
throw me in the ring.
She's like, let's do it. So she started training and took the fight and like messed this girl up and like really loved it.
So Sandy's a badass.
She's a badass, yeah, for sure. And so then she like started getting some fights, and she had probably like maybe 4 or 5 amateur fights. But at this time, she was considering going into MMA and stuff, but she was a mom of 4, and she had like some injuries and stuff, and it kind of cut her athletic career a little short. But she was always somebody that like just had fun with it, and I still, every time I see her, we're messing around, boxing, throwing hands,
showing some moves.
Yeah. I think I might be able to take her at this point. I'm not 100% confident in that, but I think I would have a good shot at least. She used to whip my butt, but I've been training a little more now. So yeah, but my mom's the best. She's just overall just like one of the most fun people to be around, like in the entire world.
Yeah. So what do you think this foundation, like with your family growing up, like where do you think that the foundation, like it seems like you guys are just such a great tight knit family, like very supportive of each other. Where do you think all that stems from?
That's a good question. I would say that It's just about consistency. I think it starts with my dad being a good leader. He coached, I don't even know how many individual state champions and state championship teams in wrestling, and he was such a good leader in that he would always be the first one to like sacrifice and take it and put his money where his mouth is, right? Like really be the one to actually put the work in and so I think a lot of it starts from him, just being a good leader. And then with my mom, just being somebody that was a great balance of competitive and intense, but also like supportive and caring and fun. And then I think that what was really important, outside of their personal attributes, was
OnTheStacks will be back in a flash after a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Elevation Wellness, NEPA's premier wellness center located on Mundy Street in Wilkes-Barre. From pro athletes to busy parents, Elevation Wellness is leading the conversation when it comes to bettering your health through integrative medicine. Founded by NEPA native Louis Helmecke, Elevation Wellness offers physician-formulated and guided treatments that are administered by registered nurses. To learn more about how you can experience the benefits of IV vitamin therapy, multivitamin booster shots, non-invasive aesthetics, or peptide, NAD, red light, and compression therapy, visit elevation-wellness.com or follow them on Instagram at Elevation Wellness NEPA. All OnTheStacks listeners will receive 10% off their first purchase with code STACKS at checkout. Call 570-762-9400 or visit elevation-wellness.com to book your appointment today. Elevation Wellness, taking your health to new heights. Welcome to the future. While you're hearing this ad in the present, the Center for Technology Innovation at Lackawanna College is preparing students for the jobs of tomorrow in the world of advanced technology. The Center for Technology Innovation will offer undergraduate degree programs, corporate training, as well as short-term stackable certificates in areas such as robotics, cybersecurity, electric vehicles, virtual reality, and artificial intelligence. Based at a 90,000 square foot facility in downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania, the Center for Technology Innovation is located 2 hours from the major cities of New York, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, and is just 15 minutes from a commercial airport in a region thriving with tourist attractions and a vibrant restaurant, educational, and cultural scene. Lackawanna College is a proven industry-leading innovator. But don't just take my word for it. Fast Company even recognized Lackawanna College's reputation for innovation by naming them to their top 10 list as one of the world's most innovative companies. For more information or to enroll, call 877-346-3552 or visit lackawanna.edu.
When a tractor trailer gets in an accident, you can be assured there's almost always serious injury or unfortunately death. When these tractor trailer accidents happen, you need to get your lawyer involved ASAP. And when it happens, they're at fault. But you need the lawyer who can prove that fault. And that's what we do here at Anzalone Law Offices.
To learn more, visit Anzalone Law Offices online at anzalonelaw.com. And now we're back on the stacks.
Was that faith is so important to my family, and no matter what, we'd always, pray before dinner, pray before going to bed, go to church together on Sundays, and just spend a lot of time with each other. And I think that when I look at kind of how I grew up and what we spent time doing, obviously a lot, I won't say the majority, but a lot of time spent wrestling or in athletics, but there was always time made for each other in other ways, in thoughtful, loving ways. And whether that was, like I said, praying before dinner, talking to each other about how our days went, or, all of us, I remember there would be so many nights of us, like me and my little sisters and parents huddled like on a bed, praying and talking about, things that we're on our hearts, and then, going to church and being part of a bigger community and being able to kind of, see the examples of people and how they live their lives and just feel a lot of love in general. And so all those things, I think, just brought us very close. And like I said, when I look back on my childhood, I look back on it super fondly, even though there was a lot of sacrifice and even though there was a lot of missed, I guess, like what most people think of as like core memories, like birthdays or
all the social stuff.
Yeah, birthdays or going on vacation or things like that. Like I didn't get that, but I don't really like feel like I needed that. I don't really feel like I missed out at all.
Now you guys just did sports and all that and like that. I mean that's what it was.
That's
and
what we liked and that's
yeah.
what we enjoyed.
And that's all that matters, dude.
Yeah.
Like none of the other shit really matters. Like, you know, again, it's just if that's what you're happy about and that's what you guys like to do, then that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't feel like we ever had to like there was no like keeping up with the Joneses in my family. It was, you know, really just doing our things, and I think that's where a lot of my sense of like self and autonomy, and I wouldn't say I'm like not necessarily rebelliousness, but like I'm not afraid to.
Are you a rebel?
I would just say I'm not afraid.
I love rebels.
Rebels, I would say. So like when I think of a rebel, I think of somebody that's like doing bad things, right?
Okay, yeah.
But like I feel like I'm rebellious in that like let's say when I was a kid, my parents, I was very like, if they told me to do something, like I would do it because I respected them. But when I was like 10 or 12, if another adult came and was like, do this, I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
Like if you make me understand like why, then I'll do it.
Right. Dude, I was the same way.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think like I have that in me where, you know, most people are more respectful of authority, and I'm like, I'll respect authority if I feel like you deserve it. If I feel like you're telling me to do something that makes sense in my head, you know, I'm all for it, but I'm going to think about it first.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't care like if you're somebody that's in a sense like above me in some type of rank
like
order,
authority
like,
level.
Yeah. I don't think like if you have authority, like I'm not gonna respect that just for the sake of it, if that makes sense.
Right. It's just a title.
Yeah.
Right? Like that doesn't mean anything.
I'm like, dude, if you deserve this, and if like you make it make sense to me, like I'm all in. But if you're just saying something, I'm like, I had a hard time in school because I didn't have a hard time in school. I always got good grades, but there would be certain times where I'm like, this is so dumb.
Like teachers telling you to do things and you're like, I don't want to do this stuff.
No, like okay, so when I was in school, in college, I had this one class where it was basically like how to be a PE teacher, essentially. Like I was kinesiology undergrad, so a lot of people go into like physical therapy or some type of education, right? And I was like doing this class, and this guy's like teaching me it was like coaching and stuff. And I'm like, all right, I'm not trying to brag on myself. Like this isn't like trying to make myself seem cool, but I made like a lot of money doing clinics, like coaching all around the country. Like I'd have people fly me out to Washington and California and Illinois and Texas. Like I'm traveling like 30 times a year, paid a lot of money to coach. And this dude's like telling me how to coach. And I'm like, I don't think you've ever coached, dude. So
yeah,
I don't care what you're saying. Like, whereas on the other end, like Cale Sanderson, he might tell me something to do. Boom, I'm gonna do it. But you have to like earn that in my opinion. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
I love it. Yeah. So, but I want to kind of go back and maybe touch a little bit on the faith thing, because you know, obviously, I see and I know that's important about you.
Yeah.
You know, and usually in podcasts or even in traditional media and things like that, most people won't ask you about that.
Right.
You know, because you know, I mean, I'm one who really won't talk about religion much either myself, like just in general.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes I like to toe the line and be rebellious. So like, I just want to learn a little bit more about like the faith thing for you and like how it's shaped you to be the man that you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, religion is and the talk about faith is such an interesting thing, because I think, you know, people nowadays, they don't want to be offensive. They don't want to like say this and that.
Be preachy.
Be preachy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think before I get into I guess like how I got to this point, I would say like right now it's most important for me to like be a good example and lead by example by the way I live my life, right? Like I'm not somebody that's gonna put myself in compromising positions. It's gonna be doing things that I shouldn't be doing in a way that's gonna reflect poorly on me, my family, my faith. Like, so I think the way that I live and my discipline and what I'm committed to now, it's really just shown through my actions and how I live my life. And I love talking about faith, but I typically talk in a setting like with other people of faith, like and discussing in that way. Like I've talked to big groups about it as well, but right now with the platform that I have in MMA, I feel like, you know, this is a great opportunity for me to show people my faith through my actions, how I live my life and how I treat people. And maybe when I'm done competing, there will be more opportunities open up where I can do it in a different capacity. But that's how I feel now. And so, to get to this point, like I said, growing up, it was church on Sunday was like a regular thing for me. It was like not even a second thought. It was like, oh, that's what we do. We go to church on Sunday and we read the Bible, we sing and stuff like that. And I would say probably maybe like halfway through high school, I started attending Bible studies on like my own accord, my own choice, and kind of just like wanting to dive into that and learn about it more outside of like my family, right? Like it was now kind of a personal choice.
Or like you were doing it because you wanted to do it,
Exactly.
not because like, hey, the parents are forcing it on the kid kind of thing.
Yeah. And I never felt forced. I felt like, to me though, church was like what we did as a family. It was like, this is what our family
What brought
does.
you together.
Yeah. And I wasn't like, oh, I don't want to go. Like I was this is a fun routine. We go to church, then we come back and we eat brunch or whatever, and like just like,
Yeah.
wholesome things.
Yeah.
And but then like when I got a little older, I was like, I want to learn about Jesus. I want to learn about the Bible. I want to know like what we're like, why we're going to church. I want to know like what my faith means to me. And so just through Bible study, through spending a lot of time reading scripture and talking with people that I trusted who were more experienced in that, Bible study leaders and older friends that had that I looked up to, that was something where I was like, you know what, like I want to make this now a personal choice for me and something that I value outside of just it being a family thing. And so it was November 11th would have been 2013. I got baptized on a I think it was like a Wednesday or Thursday night at a group Bible study thing that it was just like at the end of the night we had done like, there was maybe 100 people there and a guy spoke and he was like, hey, at this church, he was like, hey, if anyone is interested in getting baptized like tonight, like we can do it. And I was like, he was like, I want you to come up on stage. And me and my maybe 4 or 5 of my friends were sitting back there and I didn't even say anything to him. I just got up. I was like, I'm doing this. Boom. Got up, got on stage. And I was the only one.
Were you the only one?
Only
or first one?
Only one.
Okay.
And everybody was like cheered and stuff. And the guy was like all hype. And I was just like, let's freaking do it. And then they like got me all set up and I'm like, I need to call my parents. Like it's like 9 o'clock at night. Like I need to call them and let them know like they probably want to be here. And so I called them and then my sisters all drove out. And then so in front of my sisters and family and a group of my friends, I got baptized and it was like so cool. That was the first moment where I feel like I really made it. I had been making decisions to learn and attend on my own accord, but this was the first decision I made to like commit myself outside of that family practice to my relationship with God. And that was like very big for me. And I think when I did it was so important because it was right before I decided to go to college. And so immediately when I got to Penn State, I was like, all right, this is important to me. I need to take time, I take time to hone my craft in wrestling and to perfect that. I need to take time to better my faith. And so I immediately got plugged in with Bible studies and got plugged in with the church and made that a priority to me, to where I was choosing to spend time on it despite all the other things that, college kids get thrown in their face and the directions they get pulled.
Especially at Penn State, lots of stuff going on, man.
Oh yeah,
I was there too, man. A little older than you, but
you already know,
yeah,
bro.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man.
A lot happens.
A lot happens. So like doing that when I did, it really set the foundation for me to make good decisions through college. And now, I look back the last 8 years that I've had in school and the community that I've been able to build through my faith and the friends that I have that really, are centered around that, right? Like even my wrestling teammates, you would think a lot of my friendships are centered around wrestling or fighting, but what I have in most common with these guys that I'm closest with is our faith, truly, and we have conversations about this type of stuff.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot of the wrestling guys are.
Yeah. And I don't know how that worked out. I think it was just God kind of putting his hand into all of our lives and bringing us together, because it's a very unique situation. Like, when I go other places and travel and see, I'm like, wow, we're lucky, and that's another reason why I'm still in state college, right? I could live anywhere in the world if I wanted to, but I love it in central Pennsylvania. And it's because of the community, and it's because of that common ground that I have with these people. And I know at the end of the day, that we have that in common. And it doesn't mean they're going to be perfect and make every decision correct. It doesn't mean I'm going to be perfect and make, every decision correct, but we can always fall back on that. And that's the same thing I feel with my wife. I've been married 2.5 years now, and that's our foundation. That's everything for us. And so, I think that, again, I've said this a couple of times, but every time I talk about this stuff, think about this stuff, it just makes me like swell with gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful that I have all these people and I get to do cool things, but even better, I get to do it with awesome people.
Yeah. And have a lot of fun while you're doing it.
Yeah.
Like, it's everything about it. I love the outlook on it, because it also, for you, I think it has really, shaped you in the sense of like discipline and sacrifice and following a path, the right path, and staying that course, because man, most people won't. Like, dude, you're like a rare breed. Like, I know you probably know that, but you're like an extremely rare breed, in a lot of senses. And I'm so curious just about all that, because like you're such a high performer. I mean, people are saying you're going to be possibly one of the best ever. I mean, that's a lot, man. You know, and I think you will be. I mean, but man, it's like, it's a lot. And you put in the work for the last like 20 some years of your life, man, to get where you're at. And it's just so impressive. Yeah,
well, that means the world to me to hear that from you, man, because I feel like there's been a lot of instances in my life and times where, right now on the outside, when people look at me, they see the hype train, they see all the cool stuff I got to do, the fighting, the winning. Like, it seems easy.
Yeah,
it's
they
like
see Bo Nickal, the fighter, just
of course, right? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
he's lucky. He's lucky.
Right.
I hate that, man.
Yeah, he's lucky, or he's just athletic. He's gifted, right? It's like,
do you know how hard I worked?
Yeah, it's like, this is truly a lifetime of work. I've been working 20 plus years, to get to where I'm at now. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's very cliche to say those things, but you really can't understand it unless you've poured yourself into something wholeheartedly for this long.
Dude, you got to dedicate your life, and you've done that.
Yeah, I really feel I have. And so when all these things come my way, I feel overwhelmingly grateful that my work is paid off, but I'm not surprised. It doesn't shock me. I don't feel out of place. I feel comfortable, confident, because I've envisioned these things since I was a kid. And not only did I envision them when I was a kid, I backed it up with my time and energy and where I put my effort. And there was a lot of most people aren't willing to do that, right? Like, I genuinely feel in the fight game, you look at most guys, maybe they graduate high school, they're 18, all right, I'm gonna start fighting, or some even later than that. Dude, I already had 12 years on you, like, by that time. And now, let's say we're both 27, you maybe, let's say a good example, like, all right, this guy started fighting when he was 18, right? And now he's been fighting for, let's say, 10 years. Now, I started fighting 1.5 years ago, right? So they might think, oh, this dude's got experience on him. Bro, I was literally, I got double on you.
Yeah, you already have half a lifetime
experience. I already have half a lifetime on you, just because of what I've done in wrestling. And that just gives me a lot of confidence. And not only that I've done it and I've performed at a high level, but there's a difference between doing it and performing at a high level and being part of a program like, what my dad put together, what Penn State put together with Cael Sanderson, and being a part of those systems where you're brought up and taught things in a certain way to where you aren't guessing, right? Like, my coaches have probably over a decade of notes of what they did on March 24th of 2009, like, exactly that day for practice. And the same thing for 2010, for 2011, for all those days, and for every single day of the year, right? Like, that's what I come from.
That's discipline.
That's discipline, and that's what gives me the belief in myself to know that I'm not out here guessing. I'm not out here, like, again, at the end of the day, fighting is very volatile. Anyone can get knocked out, but I'm putting myself in the best position to win. And it's math, right? At the end of the day, like, if I'm in better position than my other opponent for 25 minutes out of 25 minutes of a championship fight, like, I feel good about winning that fight. And that's what I'm trying to do, to where I get to the point where there's always going to be that risk of losing and that risk of, not achieving your goals. But for me, it's the discipline and everything that goes into that people don't even know. They don't even understand. Like they're going in there training, hitting the bag, hitting pads, doing things like that. And I truly feel like we're working on different planes. And that's the way that it's been for me, really, from a kid all the way until now. And it's a lot, but at the end of the day, again, it's the people that I'm around. It's the examples that I've been given, the leaders that I've been able to follow. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just listening to great people and trying to combine ideas from this area, and then
Just bringing all the best together.
Yeah, bringing it together and making it, my own in that way. But I feel good about where I'm at.
Yeah, we got to, we're just touching on discipline, and I feel like this is a good segue. I was, before we came on, we were talking, I was telling you a little about my martial arts and my karate background, right? And you're laughing because, right? So I didn't tell Bo this story yet, and I told him, I was like, dude, I got to tell you my martial arts story. So, I trained for a little over 10 years. I got my black belt in karate when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And, the discipline thing, we'll get to the story in a second, but the discipline thing, I think, is what, that has taught me so much about life, business, like everything. Like that is, looking back on it now, like I may have realized it a little bit like at the time, like when I was like a little kid, but like nothing like I do now, and there was a sign on the wall, and I've said this before on another podcast here, but at Martin's Karate, where I first started, I was telling you this before, but there's a sign on the wall that said, "Winners never quit, quitters never win." And, that's just discipline. It's not about winning. It's just about not quitting.
100%.
And like, you just go there and you put the work in every day. And I think that sign was ingrained in my brain as I was a kid.
Definitely.
Right?
I
looked
you're
at
saying,
that.
you don't you didn't necessarily, it means something a little different to you now maybe than it did back then, but it still was imprinting that idea in your mind.
Never forgot it, man. Like here I am now today. That was like, dude, I was like 7 years old when I first saw that.
Yeah.
I'm still talking about it.
Yeah.
I talk about it almost like I literally was talking to my wife about it. Not that she hasn't heard the story before, but I was literally talking about it last week.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it comes up all the time because that's it, man. Like it's the discipline. And I know I'm not preaching to you here, like but like, that's what it is, man.
For sure.
It's
Reinforcement.
It's just discipline.
Definitely.
So I got to tell you my funny kick story.
I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. So right before we started, I told Bo I was laughing because he on Instagram today you posted that high kick in your first fight with Jamie Pickett, where
call it a blooper.
Yeah. So Bo's blooper, right, in his debut fight, right,
Yeah.
main card,
First
right?
10 seconds.
Yeah. First 10 seconds, big whiff.
Swing
right?
and a miss.
So I appreciate number
You
one.
should clip that in or something.
Yes, Eric, we're gonna clip that in right now. Bo's whiff in that fight, amazing, by the way. But for number one, first of all, thank you for your sense of humor, because that's so important, I think, in life too. So I love somebody that has the ability to be able to laugh.
Yeah, don't take yourself too seriously.
You can't, man. You can't, because like we won't even go there. But
Right.
that's just a path that nobody wants to go down, right?
Yeah.
But I was telling Bo, I said I had a when I was 16 training and went for my black belt test. It was a 3-day test, by the way, 3 days, right? So and I'll just tell you kind of real quick the couple days. So like day one, and you'll appreciate this, I know, because like you're familiar with like wall sits, right, from in the wrestling world, right?
Yep.
So we did it, and I don't know if you'll know this, but you probably get the idea. So there's a stance called a kibidash, or horse stance.
Okay.
And it's similar to like a wall sit, right?
Got it.
But we're not sitting on the wall.
Got it.
It's just you're doing the stance. I feel like I need to like get up and show you right now.
I got you. A squat, like a.
Yeah, right. So
Got it.
So that's like your kind of like your stance as you're doing like your basics, your punches, your blocks, all that stuff.
I've seen, yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay. So, you do that for every class. Like that's how you did all your basics, warm up, etc. Right. So day one of the test was literally just sitting in that stance for 2 hours. Not moving.
Oh my gosh.
That was day one.
Yeah.
You just sat in the horse stance, and occasionally, ready for this? Occasionally they would bring a cinder block around
And they had like.
hold out. You hold it like this, right? You know, you know, and again, I'm 16 years old at the time.
Super fun.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, man. Like this is the things that we go through, right? As martial artists, right?
Definitely.
Like we love this stuff. I feel like it's like the torture and pain. That's what makes it so good.
For sure.
Right. So it was occasionally, you know, getting the cinder block. The other thing was a bow staff. You know, like, you know, bow staff, right? So even though it's very light, you know, when you're holding that out, first of all, you're in a stance for an hour. Your legs are burning.
Away from your center of gravity.
Yeah, right. Like, and trying to focus on holding that thing out. Even if it was a feather, it didn't matter. Right. So that was day one. You know, of course, Sensei would come around every once in a while and give you a nudge, and you couldn't. You got to make sure you don't lose your balance. Like you got to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, stay locked in
the whole time. Right. So he might come up behind you and knock your leg.
Yeah.
And guess what? You can't move, dude. Like you're not moving, right? Like so.
Right.
But anyways, that was day one, right? Okay. Then we go on to day two. And day two was a little bit more of a mental day.
Okay.
And I've actually we all have like this oath that day two we actually don't talk about what day two was.
Okay.
So day two, it wasn't really physical. It was more just like mental stuff.
Got it.
So can't really share a whole lot there. But that's day two, right? It's more like we get together. In my testing class there was another handful of students with me, and it was kind of like a bonding thing that day.
Cool.
Right. So then we go on to day three, and here comes the embarrassing kick story. Okay.
Yeah. Here we go.
So, dude, this was like, I don't know how many hours this was, like a few hours, right? And this is like a little bit more towards the end, maybe like the last like quarter of the test.
Okay.
I forget.
So you're
like,
almost there.
I'm almost there, dude. Like, but like there's still more to be done.
Yeah.
Right. And we're on to now this day on day three. We're doing everything. We're doing everything from basics to forms, as we call them.
Okay.
Right. So choreographed moves. Right.
Yes.
And then we're doing, sparring, fighting, which fighting was my fucking favorite thing, by the way, dude. Like I'm a fighter, right?
Yeah,
all the forms and everything, all cool. Not my favorite thing. I love to fight.
Yeah.
Right. I won't challenge you, but, so we did a little bit of everything. That day was like everything pretty much that you've learned. You did your weapons. You did everything.
Gotcha.
Right. Spectators, right? This is all right. So now we have spectators too. So day one and day
pressure.
Yeah. Day one and day two was spectators. Day two was closed door.
Got it.
Locked, closed door. But so day three, right? The one other thing we did was breaking boards and cinder blocks.
Got it. Yeah.
Right. So one at a time we go up and it's like yeah. So right. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So you have your setup, and some things you got told like, okay, this is how, like, this is what you're gonna do. Like you didn't really get to pick everything. Okay. It was just like, hey, they set it up and you're up next.
This is
Bo,
what you got. Yeah.
Right. Like Bo's up next. Right. So you go out, right, and one of the boards, like the kick, right. And this is no like knock on anybody else in my class, but when we were doing the kicks and breaking boards, it was everybody was just doing like, I'll say like basic traditional like kicks, right? It's something you're gonna break the board, problem.
Not a risk.
Nothing
really.
Crazy, right? So you know where this is going, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see where it's going.
So somebody's like, Bill, like nobody else has like done anything like special. Like let's do something cool here. So I'm like,
definitely.
I was like, all right. And they're like, how about like a jump front kick thing, right? I'm like, I don't know, like, right? It's like this is like a serious thing here. Like,
yeah, you're like,
but again, I'm not the guy that takes the easy route.
Okay.
I've never been, right? I'm an outside the box guy. I take risks.
Let's do it.
Right, all the time. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna be different.
Yeah.
I was the last one to go.
Okay.
So it's just me. And now this is the last one. Like I did everything else. Now this is the final one. There was still a little bit more to do after this part as far as the test goes that day.
Yeah.
But I execute that kick, and guess what, Bo? I looked just like you in Jamie Pickett's fight. But here's the catch. Here's the punchline.
Yeah.
I actually I miscalculated the distance of the board. I actually hit the top of my foot, right across the top, like literally like right across the top of my foot on the edge of the board, Bo, like bad. And at the time there's so much adrenaline. I didn't know if it was broke or not, but I was also, number one, I came down, landed on my back. Get the wind knocked out of you. I'm like, not only am I embarrassed, I'm like, this is my black belt test. I've worked 10 years to get to this point, and I'm just like, oh shit, boom, right? Like, and my foot's like throbbing, but at the same time, like, I feel like there was so much adrenaline in my body that I bounced right back up, and I'm like, oh man. I'm like, clearly, and you know what happened? Or, of course, right when it happened, it just goes like this. Ooh. Right? Yeah. That's all you heard. Besides the thud of my foot and me hitting the ground was, ooh. And everybody's like, it just got silent. And like, again, I just bounced right back up and everybody's like, yo, you good? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, no, I am not good. But I was like, I'm not good. But I got right back up and they're like, all right, shake it off for a minute and putting the board right back up.
Let's go.
You're up again.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, we're not done here. I'm like, yep. No. Okay. All good. Shook it off for like 10 seconds, literally, maybe max.
Right.
And I did it again. And this time execute it. Flawless. Made it.
Beautiful.
However, but now I have this throbbing foot.
Yeah.
I have this throbbing foot. And man, it was like, after I did it, I'm like, obviously it felt a little bit better.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, now we got to get through the rest of the test. But now I got this throbbing, possibly broken foot. And I still got to go through the rest of this test, right? But again, thankfully, adrenaline got me through the rest of the test. And dude, it wasn't until like the very end. So, when obviously pass the test, make it through, right? And master's coming around with our black belts, right?
Yeah.
And we're sitting in a position, like a seated position, with your hands or your feet tucked underneath your ass.
Got
right?
it.
Okay, so now I have all this pressure, right, sitting on my foot,
yeah.
right? And it wasn't really until this point, Bo, that I was like, man, this hurts. Like, I think I need to go to the hospital, right?
Yeah.
So, and until that black belt was tied around my waist, the pain didn't hit me really.
Yeah.
More so until then.
Yeah.
Right. So black belt's tied, and then like I look down and I'm like, okay, I made it, right? I made it.
We did it.
And now it's like, man, this foot. It's like all of a sudden it was just like a switch, and then the foot, and then it's like, yeah. So I walked out with a black belt, went to the hospital, walked out on boots and crutches. So
Beautiful.
But we made it.
What a story.
Yeah,
man. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
And now I can laugh about
Now
it.
you can laugh about it. I
Yeah.
think it's such an important thing, like, I mean, you could take probably 100 different lessons away from that story.
Oh my God, so many.
But I think it's so important to not be afraid to like take a risk.
Definitely, dude.
And then at the end of the day, if you do take a risk and you fail, there's no reason to be embarrassed about it. Like, it's kind of funny, but like, I just think of, like the man in the arena, like, Teddy Roosevelt, and, like, it's not the critic who counts, at the end of the day, if you're the one that's going out there, that's doing it, that's put in the work, and who's, striving, who's making a valiant effort to like accomplish these great things, it don't matter what anybody else says. Like, even if, those are the people that are going to win. We talked about this earlier too, but you're saying like not quitting, right? Not being willing to give in. I know I'm going to win and I'm going to reach my goals because I'm just going to go until I do it, right? Like,
that's it.
If I have to, I'm not going to,
yeah.
I believe I can do it in a certain timeline, right? And at the end of the day, if that's my timeline and what I think is good for me is different than what God has set out in front of me, then we're going to adjust that path. But at the end of the day, I'm not ever going to quit. I'm not ever going to give up. Nobody will ever break me. It's not happening. And that's how you become successful, right? Like, amongst other things. But if you just will not quit, will not give up, it doesn't matter if your foot was a freaking balloon.
Yeah, and it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, very swollen.
Right.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, dude. Like, like I know but like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like you just,
Right.
you just keep going.
Yeah. I don't know if I messed something up. I lost my,
hold on.
oh, there we go. I got it back.
All right, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, we're
All
good.
right.
But yeah, man, it doesn't matter what kind of challenges you face, what comes in front of you, how many times you fail, how many times you get embarrassed. Just freaking get up, bro.
Yeah, you just
quit.
Yeah, you just keep going until you win. Like, I love that perspective, and I have the same mindset because it literally, like you said, like it doesn't matter how everybody's timeline's different, right? Whatever it is,
Right.
Sports, business, personal,
Yeah.
doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
It's just a matter of like how many at bats are you willing to stand up and do,
Right.
and that's it, man.
100%.
Like you might
Yeah.
strike out 9 out of 10 times, but guess what? That 10th time,
Have you ever read Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell?
dude, that's so crazy. I'm not even joking. Well, yes, I have it, but I haven't read it yet.
Oh, dude.
I literally was just talking about this literally yesterday.
Yeah, man, you should absolutely read it. So it's just basically the story of success, right? It goes into super, hyper performers and, guys like Bill Gates or guys like, I'm trying to think of what other specific examples it's given, but like, professional hockey players or things like that. And at the end of the day, there really is nobody that's like so gifted or born a certain way that has a genetic predisposition, let's say, to like be successful at a certain thing, right? Like it's all about like almost time put in and like momentum, right?
And mapping it out.
Yeah, mapping it out. And like if you just, there's nothing that's like set out to where, you know, oh, this person's like destined for.
Yeah, like he's just super talented. Like, oh, he's just athletic.
There's like a lot. It's almost like a lot of things that coincide, right? That will bring you to a certain point in your life. Like, you know, for me, my dad was a wrestling coach, right? So that's like, you know, automatically I'm going to be putting more time into wrestling, and I'm going to have good coaching. And you know, another thing, like I'm born in January, right? So like when I'm 6, competing in the 6 and under, I already have let's say most of these guys, I've been 6 for 8 months, whereas a lot of these kids like are just turning 6. And it's like, okay, I just put 8 months more of work in than you, which is a lot when you're 6 years old.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that kind of creates momentum, and then I, you know, do well and I get positive reinforcement from that, and then it like brings you to a certain point, right? So it's like that didn't happen just because like I was a good athlete and had good balance or whatever it is. Like there was it was, you know, I was fortunate to be born with a father who was a coach, and to be born in the month that I was born.
Yeah, but you took advantage of everything.
But you take advantage of it and stuff, and it's dude,
discipline.
You should read it because
I will.
It talks about it from like so many different avenues, and it does a really good job of kind of encompassing the idea of like how people have gotten to the point that they're at. And I think it gives people a kind of an insight and a different perspective than what you typically get from mass media.
Yeah. And I think, you know, going back to, again, just I know we're talking a lot about the discipline thing, but one thing I thought was really interesting, I mentioned it before, I know you saw it, but and I'm probably going to butcher his name, but Masvidal.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
So, you know, he was on Rogan's podcast literally like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
The episode dropped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Here I am watching and listening to Rogan, right? We're in the MMA world, right? Like,
yeah.
And listening and watching them talk, and of course your name comes up. Like, first of all,
Right.
number one, like that was so cool, right? So Rogan's, you know, bragging about you, talking about, and so was Masvidal. Like, and one of the things that he said, and you may not have caught the whole episode, but it was fairly early on in the beginning. But number one, he was complimenting you as well, but saying like, dude, he's like, that's a scary dude, meaning you. Masvidal's like, he's a scary dude. Like, when I get down on the ground with him, like, oh man, like scary dude, right? But then he also goes on to talk about like his career and how he wasn't really disciplined, right? And he would say like, I had some talent, but like I would be out till 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I would get up at 4 and go to the gym and still kick everyone's ass.
Right.
But like, man, that's a path to burnout, right? And
it's really a curse at the end of the day.
Yeah, and he basically like went on to say that, you know, and he admitted like, had I been more disciplined early on, maybe things would look a little different.
1,000,000%, bro. I think that, you know, at the end of the day, your discipline it's not even necessarily like what you do. It's more so like what you'll put up with, like what will you accept, right? Because we all have something in our life, or we have things in our lives that will become obstacles or make things more difficult on us. Like let's take this example. So like if you're on the wrestling team at Penn State, you're gonna go to practice every day, right? You're going to probably eat healthier than the average person. You're going to maybe do some extra strength conditioning sessions. Maybe you'll watch film, but it's like there might be a day where, you know, you're not really feeling it, or you're a little sick, or, you know, something inconvenient happened. It's more like an inconvenience, right?
Yeah, it kind of ruins your day.
Yeah, like of course there's like legitimate obstacles. Let's say like a, you know, ACL surgery, or you know, something that's like, just put you out of commission. But more often than not, our difficulties come from like almost slight inconveniences. And discipline is like whether or not you're going to let those things discourage you and tempt you and bring you to a point of taking the easy way or not. Like everybody probably has a line where those inconveniences are going to like avalanche to overcome their discipline, right? And it's just like you got to
toe that line. Yeah, it's like a weird And
I think that how you overcome that is just like making the decision prior of like what that line is, right? If you're not making a conscious decision and thinking about like what it is, then you're just gonna at whatever minor inconvenience, there's no predictability in when you're gonna fall into that temptation, right? And that could be with anything. It could be with business, it could be with relationships, it could be with sports, it could be with whatever. And you gotta like make that decision beforehand and say like, either like, you know what, I don't care how many inconveniences come my way, like I'm going to push past it. And the more things you can like predict in the future, like, okay, what if this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, like the more different paths of
like roadblocks that you're going to anticipate them coming up.
The more roadblocks you can anticipate, the more you are going to be predictable and know how you're going to respond to those things. That's why I feel very confident when I go into a fight, because I've wrestled probably 10,000 wrestling matches in my life. I've been in a situation where, multiple times where I've had, 20,000 people watching me, and
it's a lot of pressure.
Felt that pressure, and I've fallen short, right? Like I've lost in those situations and not come out on top and let certain things get the better of me. I've also felt the other end of that and, felt the feeling of coming through and succeeding and really making the most of that opportunity. And that's why, like, when I went into my fight, as soon as the cage like locked and I was in there, I felt so confident, so comfortable, so relaxed. First 10 seconds, I whiff on that head kick. I fall down. I look like an idiot in front of the biggest audience that I've ever performed in front of.
Yeah, that could have doomed you, man.
Yeah, and guess what? Like, I'm not going to sit there and, like, cry about it. Oh, man, like, no, I'm such a stupid person. I can't believe I did that. Yeah. It's like, whatever, man. We're in a fight. Like, keep it going.
And what was the thing on Instagram? Stupid way to die or something?
It was dumb ways to die.
Dumb ways to die.
Yeah. Shout out to my content guy, Ronan, again, for that
Love
one.
It.
But,
Love it, dude.
Yeah, so it's like, are you going to let that, in reality, relatively big inconvenience of like, falling down, being in a big disadvantage.
Very big.
Like, am I going to quit and be like, all right, you got it, bro. Too bad this time. Or I'm just going to get up and like be a freaking man and not like wimp out. And, I think that just comes from the reps and reps and reps of competition, of performing under the lights. And, that you could take this, what I'm saying with fighting and wrestling, and translate it over to anything. The more reps you get, the more predictability you have of how you're going to respond to some adversity, you're going to be able to overcome that even easier, right? Like, that's why when you look at special operations units in the military, like, they plan every single possible, avenue of how their
scenarios.
Yeah, of how it can go, right? And like, what is the worst thing that could happen in this situation right here to us? All right, how do we navigate our way out of that? And that's the way that these guys are thinking. That's how I'm trying to think, right? I'm trying to learn and take those strategies and implement them into what I'm doing. Most people aren't doing that. Most people are just like, I'm going to take what I can get. And if you take what you can get, you're just going to settle for whatever, like, it's going to be the lowest amount, right? Like, that's kind of how it works. If you're just like, don't have a plan, you're just going to get the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, the bare minimum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like settling for,
Like, if you go into, let's say, like, for a regular person, if you go into a job interview and maybe let's say you go in with no expectations, you're not expecting to get the job, you're not really prepared, you don't have information on the background of the company, you don't know what the salary possibilities are, you just know that you're qualified, right? You're going to go in and they're going to say, okay, well, we'll give you 40 grand a year or whatever. And you're going to be like, okay, cool. But in reality, like, if you go in and like, all right, the going rate for somebody as qualified as you in this position is, let's say, 80 grand or 100 grand, like, if you don't know that, you're not going to get it. You're just going to get what they give you.
Yeah, because maybe they were willing to pay that much.
Right, they would be, but nobody's going to, you're not entitled to that. You're not going to get that if you don't do the research and you don't do your due diligence. Ahead of time, exactly. Like, you're just going to get whatever you can get. Like, and people... I think life in general, not even necessarily people, but like the world is looking to like like kick you when you're down and keep you down and not
and sort of diminish your value.
Yeah. Like you're just kind of floating through, like you're just going to keep floating through. But if you make a conscious effort and a decision to, do whatever it is and you prepare and you put the time in, you're just going to get better results.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too, like along those same lines, like, job interview or whatever it is, I think one of the other things, and I say this to myself a lot of time, it's something my mom said to me, like when I was a kid, and the quote is, you don't ask, you don't get.
100%, yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like, so
for
like,
sure.
in a situation like that, right? Like you apply that to that situation, right? Maybe you're negotiating the salary and like, let's just say you're like, oh, well, I want 80,000.
Right.
Like, well, again, you could just take the 40, right? Guy A could just say, oh yeah, I'm cool with the 40. Thanks. Maybe be happy with it. Right.
For
but maybe
sure.
he doesn't know any better. Right. But then here comes, candidate B and it's like, hey, I'm here. Here's my value and I want $80,000 a year. And then they might be like, what? Like, well, we don't know. We can't pay you that much money. But then it's like, well, hold on. Let's talk about this here for a second. Let me show you why.
Yeah.
Right.
And then there's at least a decision to be made rather than just all the decisions in your life being made for you. Like a big thing for me is like, I want to be the one that decides whether or not I'm successful or not. I'm not going to leave it up to Dana White. I'm not going to leave it up to the UFC. I'm not going to leave it up to my coaches. I'm not going to leave it up to my training partners. I'm not going to leave it up to anybody but me at the end of the day. Like,
dude, that's it, man.
It's going to be on me whether or not I'm successful or not. And that's why every single day I'm disciplined and I do what I need to do because that's on my mind. I'm not thinking about the short term, never. I'm always thinking long term. I'm always thinking 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. What do I want my life to look like? I'm not just going to float through. If I float through, you get what you get. But if I make conscious effort to put myself in the best position to be successful, on top of doing all of the work and every single little thing that I need to do to achieve that, worst case scenario, I freaking went for it and maybe ended up a little short. Like,
Or still way further ahead.
So I'll say, so like when I came into college, my goal was to be a 4-time undefeated national champion. Like I wrote that down. I was like, I'm doing this. Like this is my freaking goal. And, I look back at my college career and everybody's like, oh, it was so great. You're so successful. And I'm like, to me, I was like, I failed. Like I didn't do what I wanted to do. Like I was a 3-time national champion. I had 3 losses in my career. And I don't look at my career as a total failure because I want to, like when you take a step back and you're like, all right, there was a lot of good that came out of that. And there's things that I look back on my career as well, and I wouldn't trade those things that I did get for being undefeated and winning 4 titles. Like my friendships, my relationships, my meeting my wife, my team, 4 team titles, undefeated in duels. Like those things were things that I didn't expect that I wouldn't trade for achieving my goal. But at the same time, like I didn't do what I wanted to do. Like I still have a chip on my shoulder for those reasons. And that's another thing I feel like is good for me in MMA is because I feel like I have unfinished business. I feel like I didn't accomplish everything I wanted to in wrestling. I'm moving into this new arena. I don't feel like, I'm done. I feel like there's so much ahead of me. And, it's hard to maintain that mentality if you're, smelling the roses a little too much. If I'm like, all right, well, I got 3, like that was sick, or I wasn't really expecting that. Like, no, I expect to win every single time I compete, no matter what, no matter who it's against. That's how I've been since I was a kid. And I'm not only going to be competitive in that instance, but I'm going to plan and prepare before, and I'm going to put the time in, and I'm thinking ahead. And that's just kind of what I think a lot of people are missing, It's the hard route. It's people aren't willing to do those things, but I'm going to.
Yeah. It's funny. One thing I just heard, and this wasn't from really anybody very credible, but I overheard somebody say about you recently. Ready for this? Mm-hmm. This is going to make you really mad. Ready?
Let's hear it.
Brace yourself. He's just a wrestler. How does that make you feel?
It's so funny, man. Like when I go into, I think that getting into MMA, that I heard a lot of that right away. Like that's not like a abnormal thing. Like, a lot of people saying that.
But it's like, dude, you have no clue.
You have no clue, man. And I think that when I first started transitioning, hearing that stuff, like made me a little mad. Like, I'm like, all right, bro, I'm gonna prove you wrong. Like motivate me a little bit.
I'll show you a wrestler.
And now the way I feel a little differently about it. I feel like I'm like, you just don't know me, man. Like, and that's cool. Like, I don't feel that, I think it's with the amount that you know about me and the amount of research you've done and times you've seen me compete, like, I think it's a fair thing for you to think, is it reality? No. But for me, again, these people don't know me.
Yeah, and you know you.
I know me. The people around me know me. And if they continue to watch, if they continue to follow along, they're going to get to know me. And their opinions will more than likely change. And if they don't, it's no sweat off my back. So all good. It's kind of funny though. Your perspective of these things change a lot. Like, I'm naturally a very competitive person. So anytime I heard as a high schooler or in college, when I would hear like somebody didn't believe in me or that they picked somebody else to win over me, I'd be like, want to just shove it in their face. I'd be like, yeah, bro. All right, we'll see. I'll keep that in mind, and I'll just freaking train, put my head down, do my thing. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm training. And
do you?
I used to, I would say, and I would be like, I'm gonna freaking prove you wrong, and then I would want to just be like, what now, bro?
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, like eat it. And now, you know, I think I still have a little bit of that, but it's my motivation so much more intrinsic because I love what I do. Like, I think that going through college and experiencing, like I was saying, the failure, you know, of not achieving my goals juxtaposed with, you know, winning the nationals and doing those things and achieving some of my goals, I kind of realized they're not that different. The feeling after a little bit goes away regardless, right? Like, I think for me, personally, the feeling of losing stays a lot longer than the, you know, joy of winning. The joy of winning for me is like gone very quickly. Like, you know, the next day it's like pretty much done and I'm like on to the next, but the loss stays with me very long. So I don't necessarily feel like I'm motivated by people saying I can't do something. I am motivated by improving and getting better as a person and as a fighter myself. Like, I look at what I can do better from when I watch film on myself in the past, and then that's where I'm like, I need to be better. It doesn't like motivate me anymore when somebody's like, you suck, you're just a wrestler. I'm like, cool, bro, don't care.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
nice.
you got to have that mentality.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that comes with like maturity over time too, right? Like, it's, you know, that's part of it. But yeah, man, I think, you know, obviously you maybe have a little bit of chip on your shoulder here.
Oh, for sure.
There,
I think I have the chip on my shoulder still, but I think that I've realized
a little different.
It comes from me. It doesn't come from somebody else. So I'll give you an example. So like, you know, I was saying in high school, there were like times where I would be like upset about somebody picking against me. So there was this tournament to make the cadet world team in freestyle, and this guy, he was a media guy for Flow Wrestling, and he picked me to lose for some reason, even though like I thought I was the best guy and I'd already beaten all the other guys at the weight. He still picked me to lose, and I'm like, all right, bro, let's see. And no, long story short, I win the tournament, and he was mat side commentating, and right after I won, I get my hand raised. I'm like, that's right, like, nice pick, like, pick that, like I got you, bro, and like kind of shove it in his face, right? And I was just like, that, like, you get that feeling of like, it feels good for like a second, but it's like, all right, it's over with, like, you know. And so that was kind of how I acted in high school. And then to kind of see the other side of the coin. So when I was in college, I lose the national finals my freshman year, and I remember this really distinctly, and I look back on it and laugh because it was such an interesting like event. I was at this camp with the Penn State team, and we're coaching all these kids, right? And these kids are, you know, not that much younger than me, but they're like 15 maybe, and I'm like 19, 20. And so this kid comes up to me, and again, this was like a couple months after I lost. Like, I'm still like pretty like upset about it. And he goes, you know who my favorite wrestler is? I'm like, who? I'm thinking he's gonna say like me or something. And he goes, Miles Martin, who's the kid who beat me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I just remember like his friends must have dared him to or something. And I just remember being like it didn't even really like hurt me. Like, I was just like, that, like, like, I feel bad for this kid almost. Like, I don't really like, want to win anymore to like shove it in this kid's face. I was like I just like didn't say anything to him. I just like walked away. I was like, okay, like I didn't laugh because it wasn't funny, but I was also like, that was weird. And then like his coach like grabbed him and made him apologize to me and stuff. I'm like, coach, seriously, it's no big deal. But like that like kind of other end of it, changed my perspective from wanting it to shove in people's faces and wanting to like prove people wrong to being like, I only really have to prove stuff to myself. It's not, and feeling that loss, I'm like, there's nothing that's going to hurt me worse than like the actual like result.
Yeah.
So like whatever these people say, like it doesn't bother me anymore than, than not achieving what I want to achieve. So it just kind of, I think I feel like I kind of grew out of that.
Yeah. One other thing I want to ask, we talked about books a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Have you read, have you heard of Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Have you read that? Start with Why?
No, but he does a good TED talk, right?
Okay. Yeah. So like, I'm fascinated by it. I always ask people why questions.
Yeah.
I've been a why guy like my whole life. Maybe got me in a little bit of trouble when we were talking about being rebellious earlier.
Yeah.
I'll say like that's my rebellious thing. Is like I question everything.
Yeah.
Right? Like why are we doing the same thing? Like with authority.
Mm-hmm.
Well, tell me why. Mm-hmm. And people thought I was being like a smart ass or a wise guy. And it's like, no, I just need to understand like why we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you explain it, then it's like, okay, and why it's important. If it's important, okay, then we do it. Right. So, but around the why question, I was like, just ask everybody and with Simon Sinek, his big thing is, what is your why?
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, like, what is your why?
Yeah. I think that, it's changed a lot for me over the years, just having the same goals for such a long time. Your reasoning behind why you want to achieve them, I think changes a lot. And I think that when I look at what I'm doing now and why I'm doing it, I think first and foremost that God has just instilled such a strong enthusiasm in my heart for these things that I just genuinely love what I do every single day. Like getting to go out and fight people for a living and everything that goes into that, between the discipline of training and the sacrifice and the on the flip side of the the experience of winning and that feeling and not only doing it for myself but doing it for my core group and my family, and that all brings me a whole lot of joy and fulfillment. And I think that I wouldn't have all these people in my life that I do and all the resources that I have if it wasn't for a purpose. That being, I like, in a worldly sense, I like when I compete to give everyone an insight into what I do every day in that glimpse of a moment, like, and see something that maybe they've never seen before. Because not everybody can be a fighter. Not everybody can be, a professional MMA fighter and do everything I do. Not everybody can dedicate hours and hours every day to training and perform and feel that pressure and overcome it. But when I win and when I do overcome it, and I think that a lot of the people, they get like that little glimpse of everything that I've sacrificed. Like they get to be that for a second. And so I like sharing that with people. But like I said, back to the beginning, overall, it's just straight up enthusiasm, love for what I do, and honoring my gifts and my blessings.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because like one of the things I also quote track coach of mine said to me in high school. It was to those who have been given much will be expected. Mm-hmm. And you just you reminded me of it just now when you said that.
Yeah.
God gave you these gifts,
right?
And it's like almost maybe you feel like obligated, like this is my mission, like this is my purpose, and I need to like take advantage of and fulfill this because this is my purpose.
Definitely 100%. And I think that the cool thing about what I do as like really a performer is that everybody has a different purpose. There's going to be a lot of eyes on me that get to, like, when I win a fight and I see the reactions in the crowd, there's a connection between me and what I've done and how they feel. And I love being able just to give them that, because they can't get that necessarily. Like not everybody can do what I do, and I can't do what a lot of other people can do either. You know, there's a lot of people that are doing amazing things that I would never be able to do, right? We all have our own place and purpose in this life. And I just really enjoy the relational sharing of those things, and being a performer, being able to give people that like euphoric feeling and that excitement. And that's literally, I feel that like every day. Every time I go to train, I feel that, you know, maybe it's intensified in the fight, but that's kind of my life, and I'm very grateful for it.
It's like you're giving everybody like a little bit of Bo Nickal.
Yeah.
Right?
I do feel like I'm giving, you know, part of myself to people, just because they're never going to fully understand how much goes into it, right? Like the only people that really do are my training partners, my coaches, my wife, because they're with me every single day. But, you know, the average person, again, like you said, oh, you're just a wrestler, like they know this much of me, right? But when I perform and they watch it, they get to feel like that much, right, of what I do, which in the glimpse, in an instant, like it seems like it's like an overwhelming feeling. But yeah, like that whole kind of interaction between myself as the performer and the fans and everybody else that's watching, I think is something it's very unique and that I really like tapping into.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, before we go any further, I feel like, you know, I didn't mention his name, drop his name before, but we talked right when we first started. Isaac Mensa.
Yeah.
Our boy Isaac Mensa at Gemini Kicks here in Kingston, Pennsylvania. So got to give that guy a shout out, man, because he's the one that connected the two of us. Everybody's probably wondering, like, how the hell does Bill Corcoran Jr. get Bo Nickal on his podcast? And I had to reveal the plug here. So not only is he the cool ass sneaker guy, but yeah, he was the one to bridge the gap.
Yeah, making connections
between us. So I got to give that guy a shout out and some props, because it's important, man.
Definitely.
You know, and support the people that support you, and that dude supports me, and I support him, and just a win-win all around.
For sure. Relationships, man.
Dude, it's everything.
Everything.
It's literally everything.
For sure.
But, you know, again, going, you know, you talked about goals earlier. You talked about, like, you know, winning all those national championships, and you said you wrote down those goals like way ahead of time.
Yeah.
Right? Like that stuff that you worked on probably several years before. Like you're envisioning this, you're planning this, you're writing these down, you're working towards these goals, right? I'm curious to know, like, now where you're, you know, at the point that you're at now, right? You transition from wrestling, you know, and then, you know, possibly Olympics and now MMA, right? I'm curious to know, like, what your goals are now, because
sure.
I already know that you have things written down that you probably wrote down like probably a couple years ago at this point, at least, for goals that you probably have, you know, several years down the road. So I'd love to hear, like, you know, some of those goals.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, specifically to MMA, my goals are to be UFC champion, to be the #1 pound for pound fighter in the world. So, you know, a lot of people, I say that, I've said that publicly in interviews, and people react a certain way to it because it seems a little crazy, but
it's not crazy.
It's not to me, given where I'm at, what my circumstance at, and who I am, who I know I am, what I'm about. And so yeah, that's it. I want to be the absolute pinnacle, top of the food chain, and nothing. And if I said that my goals were anything less than that, it would be just settling for, you know, again, talking about like being rebellious or choosing your own path. Like, that's not the person that I am. I'm the person that, if, you know, this is the top of the mountain, I want to get every single inch, right? Like, that's kind of just how I live my life. And yeah, that's it for me. Dude,
you're a savage, and I love it. I love it, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. And a lot of people, I think, would take that as cockiness.
Right.
You know, and you know, I subscribe to the same mindset that you do, you know, around those thoughts, right? Like, and it's, you know, like you said, like, you know, some people might think you're crazy, but like, it's not you being crazy. Like, that's you, that's your goal, and you're going to achieve it. And I think it's sometimes when you make a bold statement like that, like, yeah, it's a bold statement, but like, you know, it's true, and it will come true because, like, you know, you've put in the work, and you're going to continue to put in the work that nobody else is going to do. And that's like the most important thing, man. Like, you're doing the work that nobody else is doing, like, literally.
1,000,000%, man. 1,000,000%. And, I think it's such an interesting perspective when people like don't like that. Like they don't like when people
they get like mad about it.
Yeah. And I'm like, if anybody said like, if somebody came up to me and they were like a 12-year-old kid and they're like, I'm like, what do you want to do? And they're like, I want to build a computer company bigger than Apple. I'd be like, dude, freaking do it. Like, that's sick. Like if somebody said whatever, it might seem insane, right? Like they're like, oh, I want to build a skyscraper to the moon. I don't know, just like something weird. I'm like, freaking do it,
Go
bro.
for
Like
it.
I want to watch. Like I want to be the person that witnesses that. Like let's go. So I think that also is like, there's something in the human condition that predisposes us to that. It's like anytime you see a matchup in sports where there's a big, people love underdog stories, and it was always weird to me. Even as a kid, I never related to that. They were like, oh, like this is a crazy upset. Like I want this guy to win, or I want this team to beat that team because it's a crazy upset. And I'm like, why? They didn't earn it. This team's better. They should win. Why? This guy's the best. He should win. Like I never related to the people rooting for the underdogs. I'm like, if Tom Brady's in the Super Bowl and he's supposed to win by 40 points, I'm like, dude, go beat him by 50. Like,
Yeah, you should.
Dominate. Like
Yeah.
I just identify more with the people that are killing it, dominating, like doing their thing and grinding, because I guess, I've always been in that position more often than not. And yeah, I don't know. I don't understand the underdog, like loving the underdog. I'm like, when underdogs win, I'm like, it sucks.
Like I was rooting for the other guy.
Big time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I mean, unless it's like a direct teammate of mine, like somebody that's, I'm directly related to, that I've helped in some way or they have helped me, like then I'll root for them. But if it's two teams or people that I don't have any ties to, like the freaking favorite, the winner should win.
Yeah. So, man, I think all this is just so wild, man, and I really appreciate getting the opportunity to sit down with you here today, man. Just to see what you're doing. I've followed you for a number of years, and just to be able to really get to know Bo. Like this is it's kind of a really cool moment for me, especially literally yesterday I was watching a Rogan podcast and these guys are talking about you, and it's like now you're sitting here like with me on my podcast. Like it's just unbelievable. So I'm really appreciative of that, man. Of
course, bro.
And like I know you've got probably 1 million people chirping in your ear, dude. Like like everybody wants to hear from you, and I'm grateful that you gave me this opportunity.
Well, absolutely, man. I really appreciate your time. This was a super, super fun interview for me. I like talking about, like, we didn't really even talk about fighting.
I know.
So
that's what I wanted it to be, because know what? Not many people probably are going to talk. Everyone, I'll probably ask you like one more question about MMA stuff before we wrap up. But
of course.
But otherwise, like, man, like, I just want to know Bo.
Yeah.
Because like what it's all about really at the end of the day is just the human connection. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Everyone can look up stats. I can Google stats on you all day. That's great.
Right.
Great. But like, let's hear from Bo what Bo wants to talk about. Let's just talk about the things that, of course, fighting is obviously important. It's your career, right?
Yeah.
It's your life. But like there's so much more to Bo.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I feel like those, of course, like I can talk about fighting all day. Like I love fighting, but it's such a significant portion of my time. It's also nice. It's refreshing to talk about other things, because I do have other things that I'm very interested in. And, even fighting, the idea of fighting, like, is a lot bigger than what people think it is. Everything that that goes into it, and mentally, like all these things add up to kind of get you to that point. There's a lot of different details and stuff, but I think like, because when I go into the cage, I'm still me. Like it's everything, all my life experience still comes with me. I'm not like a different person all of a sudden. There's no switch flipped and it's like, okay, Bo's just a fighter now. It's like I'm still a husband and a friend and a son and all these other things. And I'm very grateful that you gave me an opportunity to highlight those.
Yeah, man. This is the important stuff, and it's like it's a real human connection.
Definitely.
Because I think that gets lost in translation nowadays, especially with technology.
Big time.
Like everybody just gets so hung up on social media, and then listen, I'm a big social media guy. Like we're all basically everybody's social media, right? But like having this opportunity to be able to like sit down with you and have like a real meaningful conversation, man, it's just like there's something different about it. And not just because you have a really nice beard, which is a really nice manly man's beard. You know, mine doesn't even compare, by the way.
You'll get there.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I've been trying for years, but so this is kind of, I think, all we got. But yeah. So man, but before we end, like, you know, obviously you have a fight coming up July 8th.
Yep.
Right. So I got to ask you, man. I think everybody's been waiting, you know, this whole time during this episode probably for this. But like, what's your fight prediction?
First round finish. You know, it's hard to predict submission or knockout, but there's no way this guy gets out of the first round with me. I feel that's probably a pretty consistent prediction and what's going to happen for most of my career moving forward. So, you know, especially at this point, I don't think that anybody has what it takes to, you know, even make it more than 5 minutes. You know, that being said, if it goes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a whole fight, all good. And
you're still going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to win. And, but I think if I look at it, if I take a step back and, you know, I'm not looking at it from myself as an emotional perspective, it's going to be a first round finish.
Hell yeah. You heard it here. This is it.
No doubt.
Hell yeah, man. I appreciate it.
You
Keep kicking some ass.
I will.
And, man, I'm really just looking forward to watching your journey, dude. And I hope one day to be able to get out and see you in person, man. Like,
let's do it.
I gotta come out to State College.
Yeah.
You know, not only because obviously I'm an alum, but like I'd love to come out sometime too and see you out there. And man, it's just, you know, I know I've said this a million times, but I'm just extremely, extremely grateful that you gave me this opportunity, man. So
for sure, bro. Appreciate you.
So thanks, man.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Bo Nickal on the Stacks podcast in the Blue Door Studio. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hell yeah, bro.
Awesome, bro. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on The Stacks.